Hello and welcome to Generation Logistics Season 2. I'm your host Ed, and today we're going to be covering technology and engineering. I'm joined by a wonderful panel today. We have James, Lucy and Sanjay, who all come from various different backgrounds and are going to go through this topic with us in detail. So, lovely to have you guys with us. I think the best way to start is, can you just tell me what you do, what your role is, and how you got to there? James, can we start with you?
So you can. James Martin. I'm Regional Office Director for the Cleaning Group at Great Bear. I went to university. I then followed university by going on their fast track development programme at GXO. Spent 5 to 6 years at GXO, a number of operational roles, starting from operations manager, left as a general manager, moved across to the Cleaning Group as a regional general manager 2.5 years ago, moved into my current role about 18 months ago.
Love it. Fantastic. Thank you. And then Lucy, what about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Lucy Clarkson, so I'm Transport Manager at Oxalis. I went to university as well, and then did a graduate scheme with Oxalis for 3 years before moving into my current role for the past year.
Brilliant. Lovely. And Sanjay?
Hi Ed, I'm Sanjay, so I'm Supply Insights Manager at Martin Bray UK. So I went to university as well and did a business and management degree in marketing, but how I got into my role was through the current customer that we supply to. So that started as a part-time job, obviously got graduated and then got the opportunity to progress through Martin Brower internally and ended up in my role.
Fantastic. It's a really diverse set there, which I really love. We'll go into all those in more detail and how our viewers can get to where you are. So we're going to be talking about technology and engineering. So how has, in your experience, technology and engineering influenced the logistics sector? Lucy, can I start with you?
Well, in transport, I think largely vehicles for a start, massively influenced by any sort of technology. So we've always looking at different new equipment that we can put in the vehicles and the cabs. There's a lot of safety things that come from the government now as well that have got to go in the vehicles. You've got like the DBS scheme around London and things like that. So we have to have like proximity sensors, certain cameras, all that kind of new technology that's got to go on the vehicles. Yeah, and then on another scale, sort of planning. So when we're planning sort of deliveries and things like that, the planning systems that we use, they're all using new technologies, new ways of routing, the most efficient ways of routing the vehicles. That's
amazing. So has that evolved much in the time that you've been there, the planning side of computing technologies?
I think to a point, yeah. So we're obviously always looking at new ways, but we always get new deliveries on as well. So we're always looking at different routes we've got to take and things like that. The quickest and most efficient way to plan, because obviously we can't, with the scale that we're on, we don't do it all manually now. So it needs to be all through new technology. So we're always looking at new ways to improve that.
Love that. That's brilliant. And James, in your experience, how has technology and engineering affected this industry?
Yeah, significantly. I actually think probably the next 5 to 10 years it becomes a little bit more interesting. So you think around the world of sustainability that we talk about now, the labour challenges that we've probably all seen in the last 4 to 5 years, the need for us to get more involved in technological advancements, whether it be through warehousing, robotics, whether it be driving styles on the road that actually increases our MPG, reduces our carbon output. So I think it's come a long way in terms of planning standards, the use of Paragon and so on and so forth that allows us to water route and take miles off the road. But actually, I think the next probably 5 to 10 years of more CO2 reduction focus, more labour challenges that we're likely to see, I actually think the next 5 to 10 years make it more interesting than what we've already been through. I think we're probably only 10% through a pretty significant journey that we need to go on.
Wow, that's actually an amazing
Don't quote that 10%,
no,
right?
I'm not going to quote you on that. That's
but
really interesting to see how that can move forward. And sorry, there were some things in there that our viewers may not know about. MPG, I know I'm...
Miles per gallon.
Miles per gallon, and you're just really sort of focusing on the distance between your transportation and logistics and try and cut that down, is that right?
Exactly. I guess optimisation of route planning. So if we're manually planning, which it wasn't that uncommon 10, 15, 20 years ago, getting onto a system that ultimately drives the best route that we should be taking. And that technology has moved to a place now where we can avoid hills. We can go flatter routes, so we're not going up through the Peak District to get to Manchester from Sheffield, for example. Just so we're keep our MPG as high as we possibly can, so less use of diesel. Interesting, and I think if you just go on that more the advancement in technology and engineering around the use of alternative fuels. That's going to be something that changes our industry. It may not be mechanical, but in terms of the development of those mechanics into electric vehicles, hydrogen vehicles, the next 5 to 10 year period will be quite interesting for our industry.
Amazing. So we're really on the cusp of it at the moment.
It feels like it. You think about, it's all over the press at the minute. It's, CO2 and carbon emissions are something that customers talk to me more about than they ever have done before. It used to be something that I think businesses would play as a part of a tender process, but actually now it's starting to become one of the first things we talk about, and actually we are seeing customers more willing to pay for this stuff, which is fundamentally important, because if people aren't going to pay for it, it's not going to move forward. But actually, with Scope 3s coming and CO2 emissions on everyone's agenda,
yes,
I think it's a big area for people to play in the next few years.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Thank you. And Sanjay, what have you seen that influences this area with technology and engineering in your role?
So within my role, I've gone from seeing stuff being done manually, algorithms being put in, and even artificial intelligence being put in from a planning perspective. So that journey has been quite fruitful in the event that we're driving efficiencies across the board from a White Brow perspective and in industry as well. But then learning what the UK is doing and then sharing that knowledge globally with our counterparts as well. So it's not only keeping it within one specific country, it's sharing those learnings across the country, so globally. Yeah. But one of the other things I want to say is, like Lucy and James have said, we're on a journey, and collectively as an industry, we are going to start moving away from standardised fossil fuels and moving to biodiesel or hydrogen and obviously electric as well. It's just, can the infrastructure keep up? And technology is going to be developing so quickly over time to allow us to do that as well.
I love that. Yeah, and it's great to hear that conversation around sustainability. As you've all mentioned, so important to the end consumer, but also to all of us in general. I must ask, you've mentioned AI, and it is a conversation that a lot of us discuss. Is that something you're seeing more and more of within your technological fields and engineering? And is it something that's you are anticipating? Is it a scary topic for those you're working with, because it can be feathered with that in the news? Anybody got any opinions on that one?
I think it depends what level you go to it. So AI always comes with the perception that we're trying to take the manual intervention of people, I think, out of roles, which I don't think is looking to do. I think it's to enhance what we already have. So we look at it from a safety point of view. Is something we're looking at pretty heavily at the minute. How do we use AI to stop incidents in the warehouse? How do we make sure we haven't got vehicles driving into each other? How do we automatically place those people, create algorithms, which was talked about there, that makes us more efficient as well? So I don't think these are things that are replacing people's roles, which I think is always the worry around AI. We can't put people to make... We're trying to not change our cultures in our warehouses, but give people a second, I guess, a fail-safe on some of these things, which AI can do. Placing vehicles in a warehouse on a live map that you can't do today is something that will move us forward from a health and safety standard pretty significantly. You can't do that with people. So actually the interesting piece is going to use AI that is not a replacement for a person. Can't comment for other businesses, but we're not looking to do that. We're looking at AI that improves our offering as opposed to a cost-out exercise.
That's brilliant. That's really good to hear. Lucy, have you got any particular thoughts on that sector? Or have you seen it in your career?
I think within the sort of the transport sector that I'm within, it's probably not as big as it is in sort of warehousing and things like that you can automate some processes. Yeah. I think in the transport area that I work as a transport manager, it'd be very difficult to automate.
Yeah, I can imagine it would be. Yeah. So that's great. That's really good to hear. And obviously, Sanjay, you brought that up. You're obviously starting to make that integration. How are you finding that? How are you finding that people are receiving that?
So it's like James said, it's not about replacing people, it's about actually helping them to do their job to a higher standard. And rather than them having to do mundane tasks, technology can help them do those tasks which are daily routine and give them time back and focus on areas where they need to investigate more into. And like AI, it's a continual learning machine. From a warehouse perspective, one of our cultures is to make sure that people are constantly safe, and through learning and artificial intelligence being put in at mapping out those warehouse floors, it can actually drive some process improvements and safety standards improvements as well, which is something that we're looking to do on a day in, day out basis.
Brilliant. I love it. That's fantastic. Thank you. Would you mind identifying some of the issues that you might have within logistics in your various sectors, and perhaps how technology has helped you overcome those and what that looks like? If anybody wants to jump in on that one straight away.
Automation of warehouses or transport is probably the obvious place to go to. Now, that does contradict what I've just said about not removing people, but in the last 3 to 4 years, and the labour challenge in our industry has been as difficult as any time we've seen. We've now moved away from a flexible labour pool that we probably had probably 36 months ago. So we're looking to automate some processes, put away, rework processes, we're looking at doing things like automatic V&A, automatic reach trucks. These make a significant difference to our operation. In simple terms, they run nearly 24 hours a day. They don't stop for breaks. They don't bluntly go to the toilet, and they don't go sick. So these are things that can allow us to become slightly more efficient. It makes us more competitive from a business sense. The technology probably isn't quite where we need it to be commercially, I think, collectively across the industry. So I think there's a little bit of reluctance to move to it yet. But that's to say, in the next couple of years, that will become more commercially viable for people. So I think that movement into the reliability of technology is going to make a significant difference to our industry, helping us deal with some of the labour challenges that we have. A lot of customers want to see automation because I think they get more confidence in automation and the ability to flex on it. It has its challenges.
Yeah.
In our FMCG or fast-moving consumer goods that we work in, we don't necessarily have flat profiles. So automation only works typically at one speed, and you only can justify automation if you sweat that asset 95% of the time, to use a number. So at the minute, people still work, it allows us to flex up and down and control our cost base differently, but actually that may change over a period of time. So
right.
I think it can help us deal with it's not a straight answer, but I think it can help us deal with some of the labour challenges that we're seeing, certainly in the short term, but where that gets to longer term.
Yeah, so it really is look to the future, quite exciting moment, see what's to come.
Yeah, exactly that.
Yeah. And yourselves, what sort of challenges are you facing, and what technologies have specifically come in your tenure in your companies, which you've seen advantageous?
I think for me, safety is obviously a massive aspect of what we do. So the technology's really helped us in terms of anything that happens on the road while people are out, anything like that. It can help assist us. So we've got like cameras that are on the trucks and the vehicles, so we can see what's been going on. We can download footage from the day. If there was to be any sort of accident or anything like that could occur, we can track the trucks, see where people are, so that we can be there when we need to be. So it definitely helps us from a safety perspective, I think, which is really important.
That's brilliant, and it's great to hear that from some aspects as well. Not only are you keeping your vehicles, your assets safe, but your people as well there. And there's lots of advantages to the technology. That's fantastic. And Sanjay, what about yourself?
I think for me, Ed, one of the things that we've been looking at is our process at the minute is we get a daily feed from our customers, and obviously that goes through our planning processes and obviously flexes up or down within the warehouse. What we're looking to do is change that to an hourly feed, so we're even more dynamic, and then we're able to flex those shift patterns for our warehouse staff and obviously get that a little bit more dynamic. That's where we're looking to go down through with the advancements in technology, but we've only been able to do that with the relationships that we have with our third-party customers and the technology providers we currently have.
That's really interesting here as well. So obviously that advancement in technology is helping support the end consumer and not just internally with the business, which is key because ultimately that offers your point of difference. But great to be able to see that the end consumer can impact what's going on there as well. Brilliant, thank you.
Just picking on what Lucy said, interestingly from a safety point of view, especially on the road, in terms of a lot of these vehicles will automatically brake now. They will sense when things, like your car will, right? This is now loaded. This is in HGVs. We've got technology that will detect when a driver's eyes are closing and enforce them to pull over. So sleep eye technology. Wow. So bridge strikes is something that has always been a problem in our industry. So having stuff on trailers, on units, or technology that detects there's a bridge and again brings the vehicle to the stop, or certainly gives the driver enough warning that there's a bridge coming so they don't drive to them. We've not eradicated bridge strikes out of our business or out of our industry. We want to, and it's something massively high on the Transport Commissioner's radar, as it should be.
Yeah.
So we are so that kind of technology on the road is probably more safety driven than advancement I suppose, but it's a really good point.
No, but that's incredible. I didn't know that, personally, I didn't know that technology existed to actually keep the drivers that safe as well and detect that. That's incredible. Amazing. So, having implemented new technologies into your business, as we've discussed, how do you measure the success of new technologies into your businesses? James, let's jump over to you.
Okay, I think probably 3 clear brackets for us, not exclusively 3, but safety, as we've discussed already, cost and service. Not necessarily in those orders, probably service second. So it's, ultimately, if it's something, has it worked? Do we KPI the success of it? So if it's a safety measure, is our accident frequency rate reduced, for example? If it's cost, have we put a business case together that says it's going to save us £100,000? Has it saved £100,000? Has it done in the timeline that we appreciate to do? And actually, has it exceeded that? Is what we're looking for. And then service, we're in a service-driven industry. Have we seen our service improve? Are we keeping customers for longer? Are our customers seeing, as our final user, seeing what they want to be seeing? Are we now at 99.9% and not 99.85%, for example? So I think those probably are 3 indicators that would go for. There are others, but I think the first 3 that spring to my mind are those 3: safety, cost and service.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. So if I was to simplify that and look at that, you'd be setting a very specific goal and then saying, has it met that target?
Yeah, so I suppose you'd say, we want to save £100,000. Has it saved £100,000? We want to have less incidents.
Has had less incidents.
Exactly.
I love that. Simplifying it for my mind, I love that. And Lucy, in transport, how would you measure the success of new technology?
I think my point would be very similar to yours. It's sort of the same sort of area. Again, cost would be the first thing we'd look at when we were looking at implementing a new technology. So was it worth that cost to begin with? Service for customers, and then I would also look probably out in the field. So how has it influenced our deliveries, our drivers, things like that? Has it had a positive impact on that? For example, has the technology made it quicker for them without filling out paperwork and that kind of thing? So just multiple different areas that we'd look at. Yeah.
That's really interesting as well. And would you go to your drivers and speak with them as well as taking information?
Yeah, ultimately they're the ones that are using the technology for the most part, so it's got to be effective and work well for them.
So, staying with you, Lucy, as you're our transport expert here, we are looking at how technology has evolved within the transportation area. Could you just give me a bit of insight as to what's changed in that sector at the moment?
Yeah, so I think sort of similar with driving in your car and things like that. There's a lot of new technologies that are obviously brought out with new cars. Trucks are exactly the same. So there's lots of things now to aid the drivers as well while they're driving. So lane assist, cruise control, and then there's lots of telematics in the vehicle that aid with the driving. So there's forward-facing cameras. You've got, like I said, onboard computers. They've got built-in phones and things like that to help assist them.
Fantastic. It's like a full-on hub. And I've heard that, as we've mentioned, you have to stop for breaks. There are beds within some of the lorries. Is that correct?
So, I mean, the lorries that we operate on are mainly day shifts, but we do actually have sleeper cabs as well. So you do have, obviously, the 2 seats in the front, and then behind that there is a bed as well.
Fabulous. And obviously that's not for use during driving. That's when they're pulling in for their breaks. Is that right?
Yeah, and either breaks or a lot of transport companies do overnights. So they sleep in the vehicle overnight and sort of work through for the next day. So a lot of drivers utilise them that way.
Wow.
Sort of
that's
a home for the night.
That's really advanced. Yeah. It's like everything in one there. It's brilliant.
I mean, just to add to that, Ed, I think it's something now that the driving industry has changed, right? But these guys are on the road for 10 to 15 hours a day sometimes. So it has to make sure the facilities that are provided by each of our businesses are top standard. And we see it as a bit of a retention strategy. In reality, if you provide poor equipment for these drivers, you won't keep them very long. So this is part of retention, making it a nice environment to work in. And these drivers will be on their own for a lot of the times. We want to make sure they've got the technology, they've got the radio to listen to, they can get DAB, that they can plug their iPod in if that's what they want to do, and the facilities to charge their phone and so on and so forth. So it's their office environment. So we want to make sure it's not only got the right technology for them to support them from a safety point of view, but it's super comfortable and a good place for them to work.
Yeah, fantastic. I'm very tempted myself, so I'll just speak to you after this. Really, really interesting there. We've spoken about these new technologies that are coming in. What is your process like when you're trialling new technologies, and how many different systems would you try for one solution? Sanjay, do you have a thought on this?
So, firstly, there always has to be a business case of why you want to put a new technology in and what that technology is going to ultimately solve and what the benefits are going to be. Like James said earlier on, there's always a hierarchy, so obviously safety, and then process and service as well. So with that being at the front of your mind, you always want to make sure that whatever you bring in has to go through a tender process as well. It has to hit certain compliance levels, make sure it's safe for our business to use, hit all the IT requirements as well, before we even start entertaining or onboarding these technologies. We'll run a test in parallel with that once all of that agreement and sign-off has been done. And then we'll do a use test, like I've said. And if we determine that it's successful for us to use, then we'll look to deploy that. But that requires a lot of integration and a lot of subject matter experts who will participate in that and build the timelines on when that will be live.
That's brilliant. So there's quite a process there before you actually trial a new piece of technology.
Correct.
You mentioned a tender process. Could you just explain to our viewers at home what the tender process is and what that means?
Yeah, so within any onboarding of a technology, we'll obviously go out, speak to the relevant experts, and then they will present on why we should use their technologies, and we'll get a kind of like a PowerPoint on the benefits, the pros, cons, costs involved that is going to be specific to your business. Once that's done, then it obviously goes off to the hierarchy, and then they will make the decision based on whichever one we give our recommendation to.
Fantastic. So it's like I'm looking for a new computer software to go into the lorry or van, and lots of people will come and pitch to me like The Apprentice or something like that. Brilliant, fantastic. And yourself, James, what would your process be within your business? Would you trial more than one solution at one time?
Yes, pretty similar actually. And I think at the minute we're seeing more and more people step into this field as the technology of the industry changes. So we've put in some robotic cobots being a robot that moves boxes for you.
Oh, wow.
So yes, which is helpful. But we did it quite recently, and we went out to 3 or 4 different people. We ran trials with them with our product, which sent to them to go through. Yeah, as opposed to everyone can present to you a wonderful solution on a PowerPoint. We've all done it, I'm sure, and it's not always been quite as good as they've made out to be. So actually getting these people to run trials of your products, sending products to machines that are already in existence and working well, then to give feedback, go and see it in use, and then go from there. And then it becomes a procurement exercise. So it's a bit around price, how quickly you get this technology into the warehouse, or transport, should it be transport. So it's a relatively long process, but we're pretty good at doing it as quick as possible, I suppose. Yeah,
quite practiced by the sounds of things between all of you in your various industries. Fantastic, thank you. And then once you've seen these tenders, so let's have a look at that tender process. If you see multiple options, how do you make a decision on which one's most suitable? James, I'm going to start again with you there.
Thanks. I guess similar to what I said earlier about bringing technology in, so there'll be the obvious one, cost. So you're going to start and by that doesn't mean cheapest is always the best option. So there is around the cost, what service improvements, what productivity improvements is it going to give me. So what is the return on my investment? If I'll use my £100,000, I've used about 3 times now. On my £100,000, if that's going to pay me back in 4 years' time for a certain bit of equipment, but actually that one's 200,000 and it's double as productive, so it's going to pay back in a year and a half's time, then we'd look at those options. The ease of use, the ease of integration into our existing systems. So if we've got something that we've never integrated with before, which will require a lot of IT development, a lot of work with our current WMS, warehouse management systems, or TMS and transport management systems, if we've never interfaced with those before, then we may stay away from them even if they're slightly cheaper, because the cost in the background of getting them to work alongside our systems could be quite difficult. So we have to factor in a number of different things. And often it will be of how quickly can we get this into use. If we've got, and what's the need? Yeah. If we've got an immediate need that needs fixing now, and the technology is available now, but it's a little bit more expensive, but actually the cheaper option is going to be 6 months away, we're likely to go the more expensive option immediately because we've got a problem that needs fixing. If the problem doesn't need fixing for a year's time, then obviously we'll wait 6 months' time and do it that way.
Makes sense.
So yes, time pressure, cost pressure, and ultimately the service it's going to provide.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Sanjay, I saw you nodding along there with a lot of that. You obviously agree and maybe follow a similar process. Is there anything you might do differently or look at within your business, or is it generally the same?
No, James nailed it on the head. It's the need. Because technology and how quickly you can integrate it is always one of the fundamental challenges with multiple technologies, and obviously them speaking to each other, you think it's quite easy, but it's actually not. And having the right level of IT involvement as well. If there's any hidden costs, so something might jump out at you as being the option, but when you dial back and go take the layers away, you're like, actually, this is going to cost us 3 times as much. So I'm not going to go for that option. And then you might go for the more expensive one, which you wouldn't have considered, but integrating it and getting the benefit is a lot quicker.
Well, thank you ever so much, all of you, for your time today. It's been brilliant. Thank you for watching today's episode of Generation Logistics. You can check out more information at generationlogistics.org.